Hello and welcome back to another episode of Empower You Podcast. I am your host today, Michael Abney. Actually, I'm your host every day for these. It's just me. And I'm here talking about living life just a little bit more consciously, shedding light on that and talking to people all around the world that have their life going on, they're expressing it, but they're doing it from a level of awareness that's just the leading edge. And for me, it's the most exciting thing in the world. It's the thing that lights me up. And I'm so excited to invite my guest in today, Sara Vatore from Massachusetts. The town was called Elchertown, Massachusetts. Is that near Boston? That's the only reference that I have for Massachusetts.
It's west of Boston, so it's considered Western Mass, so out by where UMass Amherst is, and Amherst College and Smith College. So we're in a big college area here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. So I love your topic that you're talking about. I was right before the podcast, I was talking about how that reminded me of the sonomic breath work, but yours is somatic, which is the body. So I want to dive into that, figure out like how you shifted from being a guidance counselor, I guess at a high school, right?
Yeah.
To what you're doing now. So share a little bit about your journey from A to B, and we'll just kind of take off. I want to dive in and know more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a good starting place is just growing up. I was always, that type A, always following the right way to do things. And so in my family,
rule follower.
So in my family, you go to college and that's sort of what you do. And my senior year in college, I got pregnant, which is not what you do. I got pregnant.
Okay, yes. A little sidetrack, yes.
And so I had a son pretty early in life. And while I was being a single mom, decided to go to school to become a guidance counselor because I always liked helping people. I was always sort of the go-to person that my friends would come to for advice, and it felt like a good fit at the time. So I went to night school and I was doing the single mom thing with my son and stepped into a job as a guidance counselor and said, oh no one trained me how to work in a system, and really didn't like it. It was very overloading.
Okay.
I was very good at it. And because I was always sort of following the right way to do things, I could put a smile on and play the role and engage. But I started to burn out pretty quick, and over time and over the years of sort of just never stopping and always doing and following sort of like what my have-tos were. And at that point I was a mom as well. So lots of have-tos in motherhood. I started to have a lot of autoimmune illness expression. And so my body started to really, really break down. And I decided to start to train with my father, who was a peak performance consultant, while I was working at the school as a way to get out. So I was at the school being a guidance counselor and seeing a clearer pathway of out when I realized that I didn't want to be there. So I stayed for 5 years and simultaneously mentored with my father, who does sports performance work and works with athletes who have blocks or fears. And during that time went through a training where I studied the body, somatics. It's called somatic experiencing, and it's looking at our nervous system in our body as wiring as mammals and how that really impacts and comes into play with how we show up in the world and our patterns. And through doing that training, I realized how shut down I had been. I realized how really stuck in like just autopilot I was. So there can be a shutdown where we're depressed and we don't do anything, but there's also a shutdown where we're just caught on a hamster wheel and we don't stop. And so my body was giving me the messages to stop. And so after about 5 years, I took a medical leave to start to take care of some of the ways my body was breaking down. And at that point started my business that I do now, where I'm working with athletes who have blocks or fears. And I'm also working a lot in this other way with entrepreneurs and busy humans and people who are living full lives who want to feel more ease in their body, who might have done a lot of work on, mindset and know they want to show up in a certain way, but might still be navigating fear, or might be getting sick, or might be having breakdowns in their body. And so I sort of help people bridge that gap and bring the body back online so that they can feel better and find that alignment, so that what they're wanting to happen is matching up within their physical body and expression. Yeah.
Okay. So what was the autoimmune stuff that you had?
I had lots of different things. So I was diagnosed with a rare disease in my left wrist called Kienbach's disease. I was diagnosed with a connective tissue specialist with undifferentiated connective tissue disease. Basically, that means they don't know. So let's throw you in this category.
We're going to give you a name that you can't pronounce, and this is what it is, right? Isn't it amazing? But like, what you're really talking about is a really, well, it could be a powder keg, I guess, actually. Like, we don't realize our connected, like how we're integrated with our bodies, and how it stores like our emotions and stuff.
Absolutely.
And if we don't deal with it, because I've been down that highway too with lupus and some other things. But it's like I was in a situation very much like you, where I was like, I was not happy with what I was doing every day, because I knew I should be doing this and not doing the thing to get money. Like, it's that transition that I think a lot of folks are in right now, because we're feeling that pull to be something like, why we came here. We didn't come here to be on a rat wheel. We came here to like express our creativity and be a gift to the world. But like, there's a huge transitional space where there's a lot of components that are all happening at the exact same time that we got to like become aware of, right?
Exactly.
So like, when I was a young kid, my very first thing that my very first place I did, some friends of mine gave me books and all kinds of stuff, help you move in your first place. And there was books that were given to me. I'm 21. I'm not really going to be reading those things. But anyway, one book fell out and hit me in the head that like flashed in my mind when you were talking. It was Louise L. Hay, How You Can Heal Your Life, about how the body's connected to emotions. So that book literally fell off the shelf and hit me in the head while I was unpacking day one. I'm not kidding here.
I believe you.
I literally read that book from cover to cover. It was like 9 o'clock at night. I finished at 10 o'clock. I could not put it down. It was the most fascinating note ever. That was my huge light bulb moment where all of this was connected.
Yeah.
So I really relate to what you're sharing here about this. And I know you've got so much more information, which I want you to dive into about like the types of like, what is it like, how are you helping people connect that wiring? Like for me, I had that aha when I was, younger. Ironically, I did meet her in real life, like, 2010 is actually when I met her. And so like that, that full circle moment. And now then right after that, dealing with lupus and like all of the stuff where you're like, it's halfway, you want to go to the doctors for the relief, but at the same time, I'm completely aware they have no freaking clue what it is going on anyway. Right. So it's this weird space that human beings are in right now.
Absolutely. And we look for authority to tell us sort of like what's wrong and what to do and how to fix it. And what happened for me, and I'm sure similar for you on your journey, or anyone listening who's dealing with medical issues, is that nothing's connected. So my wrist isn't connected to my back, which isn't connected to the connective tissue, which isn't connected to the, the intimacy, like kind of stuff that I was having going on. Like, and of course everything's connected. And so
everything's connected.
How do we kind of put that aside and become our own authority in, okay, what resonates from this? How do I take the pieces that really work for me and know and trust and believe that my body is this amazing organic intelligence that has this incredible capability to self-heal? And how do we kind of bring that in and online so that
yes okay, I'm here with you 100%. I'm here with you 100% because I've had some experiences where I've been able to heal, but I've used like food and intermittent fasting. I learned a couple of years ago that when you stop eating, your body just heals itself, like by magic. like when it's not trying to get rid of all the poisons that we put into it, it heals itself.
Yeah.
But like, I never gave it any space. I never knew to give it any space. So like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think in general, my business is called Soma Synthesis Studios, and I'm creating spaces for healing, integration, and expansion. So particularly for those of us, so I homeschool, I have 2 kids, I'm running my own business, and so space is essential and has been essential in my journey in prioritizing and protecting and creating for myself so that I can be in any kind of healing process. And I think that there's so many different modalities available and so many different ways in, right? There are all of these ways in.
Yes.
So for me, it's about finding the ways that work for my unique system and using that as sort of the gateway and entry point in. So with clients who come and see me, my lens in with folks is the nervous system. So our nervous system has self-protective responses that are automatic, that come online when there's danger. And when we're not able to express that, like, for example, a very concrete example is if you're in a car accident and you're literally trapped, you can't, like, if you get into a car accident, your body gets stuck, you can't complete the protective response. You can't run away. You can't fight the car accident. You're trapped. And so the body stores those kinds of experiences, from really big experiences like a car accident to tiny, tiny examples of, my mom, never let me wear pink because she didn't want me to be too girly, right? And like we stack these experiences, and if we don't give them space to express, then they get stuck and trapped. And so in my work with folks, whether you're in person work with me and I have hands on your body, or we're over, sort of a Zoom scenario, virtual scenario, we're learning how to listen to your nervous system. The nervous system communicates in a really clear way, and we can learn how to track our nervous system, how to follow the expression so that we can complete responses that might have been thwarted or shoved or stuck given the environments that we grew up, given the ancestral patterning we're carrying, given whatever our trauma we have, big T or little t, right? Or just experiences. It's giving the body space and time to express. And sometimes at the beginning, we need a second coherent system. We need a system that's clear. We need a system that can drop in and is grounded, because our bodies, we're made of energy. And so we're constantly projecting that out, and we're in an exchange all the time. And so in my work, I'm co-regulating with my clients. My clients are coming in and they're able to start to feel into my nervous system and help their own nervous system come back into what I would call regulation, which means I can get angry and I can release it. I can get anxious and I can come out of that. I'm not getting stuck in any particular way. Whereas my Italian husband, we get cut off when we're driving in the car and he's just, angry. Right, for the next 2 hours, right?
Oh, I do that, yeah.
He has high blood pressure, right? And that's causing its own issues. So it's all about, for me, going back to your question, creating the space and learning the natural rhythms of the body and our energy system so that we can facilitate that process, that healing process that our body has the ability to be in. And next levels of that would be working with the quantum field, working with the energies around us as support, calling in guides or teachers or ancestors that we might be able to be with and help facilitate. But fundamentally, for those of you who might not be in those other areas, fundamentally, our body is designed in a certain way, and we can learn how it works so that we can assist it in the completion and expression of anything that's stuck.
Got it. So that said, like for me, that is in the world of awareness, right? Like you have to be able to hold a frequency of awareness to know how to activate these things, right? So is that something that you do, like, in the nervous system, when we're in fear, we don't have access to any of that stuff?
Correct. And so we start with building awareness around what our mind is doing, building awareness around what our nervous system, how our nervous system shows up, how it's designed to show up, but then what is my body actually doing? And a lot of
Wow.
times we're not aware of that until it's too late, until we've already yelled at our partner, or we're already in a trigger, or we're already in a deep spiral of like self-deprecation. And so what we're doing with my clients, what people are learning is, how do I catch this earlier? What are sort of the early signs that my nervous system is actually presenting? Because the body whispers, and it whispers for a really long time before it gets loud and
And then
yeah,
actually,
and knocks us in the head, literally.
yeah,
So
I've been knocked to my knees a couple of times. Not gonna lie, because we're it's like so hard to see our own crap. Even though I work with a lot of people, and for me, my work is a lot at the level of belief. Like helping people understand that they can create beliefs any way. It's just a thought. So
yeah,
like that process. But I love what you're doing with the body, because it is a part of how, like when I started to wake up, like back in the early 2000s, and like I remember it was extremely hard for me to be around other folks,
yeah,
just because I picked up on so much of what was going on.
yes,
And like it took me a really long time to understand how to talk about this without being fearful.
yeah,
Like you just blurted out, the guides and all that stuff, which I'm a channel, but like, it's not a conversation that you just go, "Oh, hi, what do you do?"
yeah.
Oh God, I hate when people ask me that. So, oh, I talk to dead people. Yes, a lot. Yeah, I'm like Teresa. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even though I have that ability, I do
right.
not invite that, because I know that's not my space. But I just love the idea that there are people in the world that we're talking about this openly and freely now, and that this is an okay thing, because you're given like, vibes that would not translate those two words, right? So like who you're giving that validity is what I'm hearing. Like,
Yes,
does that
yeah,
make sense?
it
Like, you
does.
don't occur like a woo-woo person to me.
Sure, and you should check out my stack of 20 Oracle decks that I've got right here on the left and all my crystals on the right. So while you're saying that, those of you who do know me, and that's sort of where I think my gifts come in, because I
Yeah,
frame a lot of this through the science lens. I can be in a
yeah,
conversation and really give, the psychological and scientific validity to like
yeah,
why the things we're talking about are true. And right, it's also, I've healed my system through connecting with the quantum
yeah,
field, and through, through my channeling and working with my guides. And I think what you're saying around the fear stuff, as we step into some of these gifts or step into sort of our purposes, are really big. It's a big piece, because it generates real biological fear in the physiology when we're in our own alignment and when we're in our truth in a visible way, because of the patterns we hold from our ancestors. And so for me, I'm a Jewish person. All of my ancestry are Ashkenazi Jews coming from Poland and Russia and Lithuania. And so literally our survival was dependent on hiding. And so I've had to, like historically. So for me to be visible and to talk about this stuff, to talk about any of it and be in the world, generates real fear in my body. So I've had to learn how to work with that, how to clear that. And that's why people who come and see me say a lot, like, I've done so much work. I know that I'm fine. I know that I want to be doing this in the world, but my body keeps like freaking out before I am speaking in front of a big group of people, or like I throw up before I go on stage, or I'm really fine until after the workshop and then I'm sick for a week, right? And so how do we help our bodies line up now, given the state and time that we're living in now, line up so that we can be in our gifts? Our ancestors didn't work as hard as they did so that we cower in fear right now. They did what they did so that we can be showing
bloom. Yeah,
up, yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah.
our truth and our bigness.
If you don't care, what would
Yeah.
be something that somebody, I know you can take us down a huge rabbit hole, not a rabbit hole, but like on a journey, on this subject. But like, what's the first thing, like somebody that's listening to this, that they can do today, that this might be like, wow, I'm really resonating with this, because actually I'm resonating with this, but I'm like, what is one thing that I can just like do today that would open the door to understanding our connection to that alignment, because it's not just, it's with our bodies, it's also with our environment. Like it all has to match. And what you were saying about like the lineage of being Jewish and that, yes, I'm a gay male in the world this time around. And so I'm like, I totally get that like hiding thing. And, like I'm in the process of like really niching down and getting really, really clear about who it is that I want to work with. And that came up recently about how that was just like, I never connected that was who I was going to be working with, was like gay solo entrepreneurs that want to do big shit in the world. And like, but the aha was like, we grew up in a world of survival, and then gay people, especially gay men, I mean, everywhere, but like for me, I just have my experience. We have to master survival at a really, really young age, and we become really, really good at it.
Yes.
And it serves us to a point. It's like our winning formula. Like how I would do anything in the world, I just had to get somebody to tell me that I couldn't do it. And if they did that, check. It was done. Like without like, it just happened. Right. But at the end, I had to I was doing mental gymnastics to get unconsciously to get people to do that. And it started to backfire on me. And I knew it was breaking down. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And like now I don't have to do that. But like at the same time, we're shifting out of survival as a planet, and like thriving is the only where to go, but it requires like the things are gifts cannot use survival to manifest them. It blows them up. So do you deal with that too? Like what's your take, your take on that? Like your perspective on that aspect when you're working with people, shifting from, we've got wiring that got us here, but it's not going to get us there. Right.
Exactly.
So I think this is a crux of what you're talking about, because that's like, I got sick. That sickness led me to being healthy, because I was not a healthy person prior to being sick. And now I am a healthy person.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have any of that shit anymore. So it's like, but it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't still happen to the body. I get a thing here or, teeth or whatever, right? There's still stuff that's happening, but I know that that's a root of something that's going on bigger picture.
Also energetically. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so what I really work on with clients is, because we are so stuck in our heads and we're trained, particularly if, listeners are from the US, like we're praised for our thinking. It's the only thing that's focused on in school, like, memorizing facts and all of those things. So starting to bring the body online and and recognizing and learning when you are most centered, when you are most yourself, what does that feel like? Our own essence feels a very particular way when we are connected and in alignment to that. And for a lot of us who grew up who are more spiritually open or channel or empathetic, we are soaking up and taking in everybody else around us so that we can make sure that we're okay in our environments. And so then it's very hard to discern and separate out, okay, what is mine? What do I actually believe? What do I actually think? What do I actually feel, separate from expectations of parents, partner, friends, society, etc. And so what we're starting with is, learning what my own essence even feels like. And that is a body expression. When my nervous system is working well, when I am in real coherence with my activation and deactivation cycles in my body, I have lots of energy that I can harness in that life force. And then I can rest really deeply and repair and restore. And it's learning about what that feels like. And like you're saying, building awareness so I know that if I don't feel that way, there's a gap, and how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I totally get that. What would you say? You had your business for 7 years, right?
This is my seventh. Yeah.
Seventh year.
Yeah.
What are your? Because I'm I'm about 9 years into my real estate, but 2 of that doesn't count because of the pandemic. Because it kind of, because when I got sick, I became a real estate broker, and I really, really loved it. And it it taught me so much about money and reading contracts and that type of stuff. I never paid any attention to that stuff. It gave me so many life skills. I love what it did, and helped me connect and gave me confidence, actually.
Yeah.
But now, like, this switching over to like coaching people all of the time,
Yes.
that's like a whole different like animal. But at the same time, that's where I feel my most comfortable when I'm having conversations like this,
Yes.
or when I'm using my gift. Like the rest of the stuff, like trying to figure out how to market that, how to sell that, how to have all the structures around that. That's, if I'm not learning, it's not exciting. If I feel like I have to do something, no.
Right.
But if I keep the context of, okay, I'm learning something, this is temporary, and I think learning is crucial to our well-being, to keep us evolving. So I love that. But at some point, it does, like, really, at the end of the day, like, this is all I love to do. It's just like have these conversations and help people release the survival wiring and show them how to create whatever wiring they want to create, so that they can manifest what it is that they came here to do.
Yes. Love
right. That. So like that is my whole thing in life. That's what gives me that balance. Plus I'm a Libra. So it's like I have to have that. But when I'm turned like that full on, there is the opposite of that like, after 6, 7 o'clock, everything goes off and I have to be still, just like I am in the morning with meditation. Like I don't want to talk to nobody. Like, I don't know what this space is, but it's just like, I'll find a YouTube video that's got some nice quietness and like, does that make sense?
It makes so much sense because when we're in expansion energy or we're on, right, we're turned on. Sounds like you, like when you're meeting with clients or you're having these podcast conversations, you're on, like you're lit up, you're on. Yeah. That's activation energy. That's healthy activation energy. And so we always, in that expansion, there's a contraction. And so it sounds like you build in naturally for yourself these contraction spaces where at the end of the day, you get to decompress, you get to turn off the senses that have been turned on all day, you get to shut those down and be in the recharge. You're creating the space to be in the recharge. The problem becomes when we're not creating those spaces. So someone who does that and then move, like what I used to do is I get home from work and then I'm moving into cooking dinner and I'm moving into doing 9 loads of laundry. And then it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I was working on letters of recommendation and then I'm sleeping and I get up and do it again. And then I'm not creating those spaces. Right. Yeah. And so the spaces to decompress, to come down, to unwind are essential. But what happens in our culture, because we're all so used to going and doing and churning, being in the churn and not stopping, right, internally, our bodies, a lot of us really struggle with like resting and like actual recovery rest, right? We turn on TV, we're scrolling, we're listening to news.
Yeah, that's not that. I've had to stop all of that. I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
I cannot stand it anymore. I haven't posted in like a month. It's been the best thing I've ever done. I realize it doesn't freaking work anyway, but I'm grateful for the time that I learned how to write. I am grateful for that.
Yes.
But like, as far as like connecting, it doesn't really work.
It's too much. And so it's finding the other part of what I'm doing with folks is helping them learn how to like actually let their bodies start to rest and come out of the heightened expression, right? The stress response that we're in a lot of the time. Yeah. And a lot of people use meditation or breathing techniques, which are great. I use a modality called the MELT method. I'm a level 2 instructor, and it uses these little rubber balls, and I don't have one with me, but these really big soft foam rollers that work to hydrate your connective tissue system, which is the 3D fluid matrix that houses all of our muscles and bones. And so when you use the treatments, you do hand treatments or foot treatments or get on the roller, it is releasing the stuck stress, the dehydrated tissue that happens in the tissues, it releases it. And so for people who have trouble meditating or have trouble sitting still or have trouble falling asleep, this is a great modality where you actually get to do something. And then it helps bring your nervous system down into that nice parasympathetic response, which is the opposite of the expression, right? We need that parasympathetic response in the nervous system to rest, to digest our food, to sleep really deeply, to heal. And so it's finding the things in your life that work to help your body be in that down, so that we have the contrast for expression and energy and bigness and fullness. And then I also can contract and go inward and slow down and have calmness and quietness and restoration.
Do you use the like the rhythm of the day? Like, so I get up really kind of early. I was just on vacation last week, so it was like I'm literally, I'm having to retrain myself to get back to the 5 a.m. thing. And I love it when I'm there, but like it was fine when I wasn't. But like my focus is so much better in the morning. So if I focus on like whatever my main thing I'm working on in any given day, that's the thing I focus on first. Then it's like the callbacks and the blah, blah, blah. It's like less and less. So when I get in the afternoon, that's why I do my podcast in the afternoon. So I'm like, I'm done with all of that. And then after this, I can do some reading or meditating, or not meditating, but reading, or it's basically reading. That it's like, or an audio podcast. Sometimes I will do that as well, with a walk that just sort of like gets me back down into that space. So like 5, 6 o'clock, I am, preparing something that's hopefully healthy and easy, that makes me like on into the rest, so that at night I'm with you 100%. I'll get distracted and I'll just go because I think I get more stuff done. But I'm sitting there at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and it takes me 3 to 4 hours for my mind to shut off. And so like I learned a long time ago I can't do that. So do you use that as well, like in your practice, as far as like helping people like utilizing the natural rhythm of our day?
Yeah. And I think too, it's learning within our own cycle, right? Or within the bigger cycle, it's finding our unique cycle within that cycle. So for some people, it's afternoon where they find themselves most productive, and they might do, have that morning time, to do other pieces. And then in the afternoon, that's when they focus on their, the big important piece. So it's learning for yourself and building the awareness around, where do I thrive? Where do I get the most energy? What time is that? So for me, because I'm still like on a bleeding cycle, like I have natural built-in days as a female body that bleeds where I rest. Those days when I'm scheduled to have my period, I block off, and that's my built-in rest. And I'm like really making sure I'm not seeing a lot of clients. And so finding like I have my monthly rhythms, I have my weekly rhythms that I'm in, and then day to day, I'm sort of connected with my body and assessing for myself, what makes the most sense given my homeschool schedule, given my work schedule. And so for every person, it's learning what is your cycle, like what is the rhythm that works best for you within sort of the larger cycles that we're holding. And then we have seasonal cycles and the moon cycles and all of these different, all kinds of cycles, right? And so it's, finding and syncing to your own unique cycle within these larger cycles that we're kind of dancing with.
I love it. And then there's the food, like, because I only eat in these certain windows. And yes, all of it's like, it's inside and out, and it's all got to mash. And there's like all sorts of ways but those are the pieces. Like that's the canvas that we're working on to create the most empowering experience that we can like have in life is playing with that and finding out what works, what doesn't work, so that when we're moving down the road, because it doesn't stay that way, and we know what pieces to adjust as we move forward because we're connected.
Right. Exactly. And listening to those whispers as things shift and change when other little flags come out. I found myself the first 2 years of my business, I fell right back into my same overworking pattern. People were seeing my worth. They were inviting me to do things. I said yes to everything. And there I was. I burnt myself out again. And so it was like I spent the second 2 years letting go of all the things that I had said yes to. So it's very funny how our bodies kind of like, when they're familiar cycles, we like kind of like find ourselves back in there. And so it's learning to notice those subtle shifts so that we then can make, the changes or the choices that allow us to be serving ourselves at that highest frequency and level.
I love it. One more thing before we go. I know this could be a big subject too, but like I know a lot of people like us that are, anybody that's starting something new that they're being called to do. It's like a knowing, you're supposed to do it, but like there's this part of us and that feels like an imposter. That's energy of like, who am I to be doing this? I did this, I grew up in the country. Like, who's this country kid? Like, trying to do all of this stuff in the world, like and I'm still honestly in process of it. I still feel it sometimes. I plow right through it. But it's like, what's your take on your viewpoint on that? Like, how is that impact your clients or because it could be a huge stop. Like what's underneath that for you?
Absolutely. So for me, imposter syndrome, right, that's a part of ourselves that has developed over time in some way. So we all have parts of ourselves, right? Usually we have sort of like an inner critic and an inner child, and they battle it out. And so imposter syndrome to me is sort of an aspect of that, where we have this part that's sort of trying to protect us, that part that's in fear and sort of saying, you're not good enough and don't be so big and all of that. Although it's not kind things that it might be saying to us, it's actually trying to protect us. It's saying, don't get too big, it's dangerous. Past lifetimes, or in your childhood, or when this happened, or for you, other gay men got hurt, got killed, got this, got that. And so the body is sort of like, and the mind, because it's all connected, are like, wait, don't mess up, right?
Off with your head.
Yes.
Off with your head.
So it's learning how to recognize when that part comes up. And for me, there's also with our parts, there's a nervous system expression. So like when I'm in my critic, my nervous system also feels a certain way. When my imposter syndrome comes out, my nervous system feels a certain way. So it's a learning about, again, what does it feel like when I'm aligned in my truth and I know? Because for many of us who are battling imposter syndrome, there's still a knowing in there somewhere. That you're meant for something more. What it feels like when you're in alignment. Your bigger mission and purpose. And so like rooting in that expression as your truth, and learning like the embodiment imprint when you're most centered and channeled and with clients and connected and feeling that way. What does that feel like? And so when imposter syndrome comes up, we can work with nervous system tools to release the fear, to recognize that it's not present day, to be navigating that and clearing that, and then activating, calling in, being in that alignment and frequency of what your most confident self feels like, or what your alignment feels like, or your center, however you want to look at that.
Yeah.
But it's a huge thing that comes up all the time.
All the time.
That's
why I really that's why I wanted to talk about it just a little bit. Thank you for your insight on that, because it's like it is connected to our wiring that's inside of us, that it actually makes it feel more real, even though it's just a response. Like you tap on the gas and you go forward, you put on the brakes and it stops. But it's like we forget that, and it just feels like it's hard to process all the information that's coming at us through us all the time from outside sources, let alone the one that we need to be connected to the most, right?
Absolutely. And we get so hooked in believing the thoughts that we have, right?
Yes.
And our thoughts are not true. It's just brainwave activity, and no one teaches us this. And then we have one thought, and then we're making up this big story that's then centered around that one thought, and it's not even true. And so for a lot of times when I'm
we make them true.
Right, so we make it true, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? But the starting point with imposter syndrome is like when we have those negative thoughts, that initial question is that true? Is that really true? Right? Like, what is that a fact? right? Because
Yeah.
99% of the time, it's not.
It's
It's
not.
based on a fear or a worry or a comment somebody else has made that we're then internalizing and thinking is true. So that's really the starting point, is like, how do we start to separate out? We are not our thoughts. We have thoughts, but we are not them. And so we're going to need to disidentify from that imposter syndrome part, right? So we can put her, him, they over here and be in sort of what you know to be actually true when we get to your core belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of our thoughts are not even ours. They're like, we're picking them up from other people and we don't even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
That's why it's so important to be really conscious about who you surround yourself with. Like, exactly. It's so incredibly important. And if it's somebody that doesn't feel right, it doesn't mean that it's a bad, I used to have so much guilt about, oh, I can't be around that person, or I got to be around that, like,
right.
Yeah, no, we don't. Actually, we don't. They're going to be just fine, and you're going to be just fine. And that space helps create the level of discernment that you have to have to be in the world, actually.
Exactly. And I think who we're spending time with is essential. And then also what we're listening and watching to things.
Yes.
Not tell you.
Yes.
What the amount of clients that come through that are like, I'm really depressed. And, and we're like kind of ironing it out and looking at like, and they're in the middle of watching the most depressing, binge watching the most depressing Netflix show that is like 12 seasons. It's like, you have to stop watching that. Like, this is where it's coming from. What we see, what we're taking in auditorily, our body interprets as if it's happening to us or it's a part of us. It's why we can be emotionally connected to TV shows and characters or the news and the things that are going on.
That's like a TV show now too. Like, it's produced. It's like, it's not like, it's just, it's literally designed to keep you, like that. So it's like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to work extra hard, right? Like, to protect our spaces, to protect our mental health and our body's health and our emotional health and well-being with what we're listening to, what we're watching, who we're spending time with.
Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure. I could literally keep going forever. Or try to keep these around like 30 to 40 minutes. Yeah. So like, I think this is a really great place to land the plane today. So if somebody wants to know more information, I will put your information in the description box below wherever this travels. And so people can get a hold of you and find out more about how you can help them. And I so appreciate you being here today. Is there anything like a takeaway or something that you just want to kind of share to be complete with this podcast?
Yeah, I think the last thing that I'll just add is that change is possible. I think sometimes we think we're really stuck one way, or I always think this way, or I'm always going to feel this way. And it can keep us just really stuck further in not changing. And, I'm an example of someone who's completely rewired her nervous system and brain and body to be able to show up and be in my service in the world in a really big way. And that, I'm literally two different people than I was for the first 30 years of my life. I mean, people that find me now, it's, it can't even believe it. I'm just so different. So we have this amazing organic intelligence of our body, of our energy, of the field that we're living in, the quantum nature of the cosmos. And so, change is possible, and really being able to rewire and repattern is the way that we can really find that truth and that expression.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. You guys listening today, I know you got value out of this, because if you've listened to this all the way through, you're connected to understanding that there's more going on than what we're thinking, how it's connected to our bodies and related to our spaces around us. And the more information you have, if you want to know something, just call it in. Just ask the universe to bring it in, bring you the right people, the right information at the right time. And I swear, it will totally do it. But for now, exactly. But for now, we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.